people in Africa had been central players in spreading the good news and in being part of the growth of the church. That had always been that way. And so we know that's happening, but we don't have a story to tell, a satisfactory story to tell yet about what that means for us. What I felt was needed was a history series that's based on individual people's stories. The next step is to fill out those details and make those stories come alive. So that's why I thought biography is a kind of a form that allows you to hear the voices of people that are marginalized in other kinds of histories. There were 16 participants in this biography workshop in Kinshasa in 2023, and they were both men and women. And one of the requirements of this workshop was that half of them needed to write a story of a woman. And I was very excited about those stories in particular because those perspectives, I had spent a lot of time trying to find them when I was doing my dissertation research, and I really could not. And I looked in a lot of places, and it was impossible for me to find out what were women thinking at that time. How did they see? What did their faith mean to them? And what roles were they playing in the church? It was impossible to find out. Yeah, so when I started reading the first biographies of women from this first generation, I got so excited because it was just, they were coming to life again as the role that they played in the church was central. It was centrally important. They were leaders in the church, and they exercised their leadership in lots of different ways. So one of the women, her name was Sengu Rebecca. And Sengu Rebecca was born around 1908. She would not be allowed to go to school. So she did that anyway against her parents' wishes, because for her, this was a step towards emancipation, and because she had heard a message about a God who loved everyone the same. And she realized that that meant he loves girls and boys, women and men the same. And that means that for me to go to school is possibility. She finished her schooling, she got married, she had quite a few children. Several of her children very tragically died when they were young, some of them of smallpox. And she became someone who was very good at supporting people in their grief and in their loss because of the grief and the loss that she had experienced. And she also became someone who was absolutely committed to caring for vulnerable children. She was very active in the church alongside the men who tended to be many of the official leaders of the church. So she was known as a very assertive, decisive woman. And she would get up in church assemblies and she would make her case. She would preach and she would assert the need for women to have their proper place in the church. One of the fun things about supporting the authors of these biographies as they write their stories that are based on a lot of oral history, a lot of interviews, but also some documentation that they're able to find there in Congo. But then I'm able to go in the archives and look and see, can I find any other sources? Can I find any other mentions of these people? And sometimes I'm able to. In the case of Sengu, I was able to find a few more sources that I could then share with Bercy, who is writing the biography, and then she could integrate those into the story. And so that felt just like a wonderful collaboration. It felt like a healing of the way that archive has been so inaccessible to researchers in Congo, even though it contains such important primary sources related to their ancestors and their foremothers and forefathers. Bercy Mundedi is the director of the Kalonda Bible Institute. And so she is a member of the SEMCO, the Communauté Mennonite au Congo, which is one of the large Mennonite churches in Congo. And she's also one of the first 3 women to be ordained by the SEMCO. I think it was in 2012 that she was ordained. And she describes, by the way, that her ability and her courage to pursue that dream of being a leader and a pastor and an ordained woman, was a large influence for that was Sengu, because she actually grew up in the household of Sengu. And she was one of the children that Sengu supported and helped when she was in a vulnerable place herself. And so anyway, Bercy, the way it works with these biographies would be that the authors would send a draft, and then I would offer some revisions and suggestions, and then I would also do some sleuthing to see what I could find out about the people that are mentioned in the biography. I remember spending, a day where I just spent hours looking and looking and looking through all these photo albums and all these pictures that are thankfully mostly, separated out into particular boxes, so I didn't have to look through all 100 and however many boxes there are in the whole collection, but maybe 6 or 7. And I saw a picture of a group of women, and I looked on the back, and I almost missed it, but then I saw that, so there was a different spelling of her name, which was Lebecca instead of Rebecca. And then I realized that might be her. So then I took a picture of it and sent it with WhatsApp to Bercy, and Bercy was like, yes! That's her, there she is. And that was how she spelled her name, and this is why it was spelled that way, and this is why she had that other name, which was Kinanjinji, why she was called Kinanjinji. And so there was this, it made everything come alive, right? To be able to be down there in the basement, but WhatsApping back and forth with people in Congo who were doing this research together with me and helping to find the sources that we needed. This is what investigators tend to be like. And I thought, yeah, I love investigating. And being a historian means that you get to investigate people that can't stop you anymore because they're gone. And so it's like being a detective. So I love that part. And then I love the church, from having experienced the church in many parts of the world and felt that sense of kinship that is so mysterious and amazing across many different cultural boundaries. And so it just made sense to put those things together. And I love reading, I love stories, and I love learning about real people and the feeling of recognizing those people as being part of a family that I'm part of. It feels like expanding the boundaries of what it means to be a Christian. So I love that too. So much more that God was doing in Congo that doesn't come through in the pages of the histories that we have so far. When we read these stories, we can see God at work. That's the biggest reason why I think it's important for us to have these stories, and why I think North Americans need to read them. It's part of healing our story of the relationship that we've had between North Americans who have this legacy of sending missionaries to other parts of the world, and then other parts of the world where there were missionaries from those places right from day one, usually before the North Americans even got there, and they were active with a missionary consciousness and vision. Sometimes they were the ones pulling the North Americans along with their vision. And we need to hear the story from them about what it was like. So I'm trying to build up a funding base to support the time that I spend, and also the workshops and the publication costs.